gang, I'm back, and I like doing the first one, so I can't stop. We're going to do another tour of the first day, or part of the first day's battlefield, and if you liked the ambush, or not the ambush, but you liked the railroad cut in my first broadcast, you're going to love what happens then. So let me show you, get started, what's going on. Standing at the end of Oak Ridge, remember the tree line portion, if you watch my previous broadcast, it's behind me, Oak Ridge, that the Union forces retreated to after being initially beaten by the Confederates before the Confederates were beaten in the railroad cut. I'm standing on the upper end of Oak Ridge, the far end, and it, as you can see, is more bare. You can see the road kind of V's here. I don't know if you can tell, but it comes to an apex with that. And this in front of you, this, at the time, was the Mummersburg Road. I believe still colloquially referred to as the Mummersburg Road. And that hillock ahead of you is called Oak Hill, not to be confused with Oak Ridge, where I'm standing. The big monument at the center of the camera right now is the Eternal Light Peace Memorial, dedicated by FDR himself in 1938. It's an eternal flame, supposedly dedicated to eternal peace and brotherhood and friendship in a nation reunited, which you can see how far that's gone. But the importance of Oak Hill is it was a Confederate artillery platform on July 1st, later in the day, obviously. Put your camera down. But for our purposes right now, there were cannon there, and it's a rough reference point to the story I'm about to tell. After the fighting from about 10 to 10:30, 10:45 in the morning of July 1st, where we were, there was a lull. More Union reinforcements begin to come up. They're put into line here along Oak Ridge behind me. As they're coming up, they start to take fire from the Confederate guns just arriving on Oak Hill this way. With the guns is a Confederate infantry division commanded by a man named Robert Rhodes. It's the largest division in the Army of Northern Virginia, 5 brigades. Rhodes is a good commander. He's an excellent brigade commander. His men most famously held the Sunken Road, aka Bloody Lane, at Antietam. He was put in temporary divisional command at Chancellorsville and did so well there that he was made permanent commander. So this is his first battle as permanent divisional commander. Now, Rhodes, like I said, was a good commander up until his death. He was killed in battle in the fall of 1864 in Winchester and the Shenandoah. But unfortunately, he has an off day, whether it's the stress of trying to do a good job on his first day in permanent division command, or one aide said that he was flush and feverish that day, whether he was sick, stressed, whatever, a combination of all. Rhodes does not have his best day. Now, as you can see, he's uniquely positioned to come in right on the Union flank. He's got cannons and a lot of men, but he has some problems. Just now, even though it's the largest division in the Army of Northern Virginia, he's kind of on his own. The other Confederates are their wounds way over that way. There's no connection with Rhodes's men here. In these fields, coming up from the town, you can see, he can see the early arriving elements of what would be the Union 11th Corps, who would come into line on this, in these fields. So Rhodes has no idea how many Yankees are coming up through town. All he knows is that he has this one division, and there's Yankees arriving in these fields. He may be the one who's out on the limb. He may be the one gobbling up. But the aggressive tradition of the Army of Northern Virginia, and I know here Rhodes decides to at least do some kind of offensive action. So what he does is he takes one of his 5 brigades, puts it over in the distance there to try to discourage those early arriving elements of the 11th Corps from getting any bright ideas about offensive action. He holds one in reserve, Yeah, I'm getting feedback here that the wind is screwing me over. I hope you can hear me right now. I'm trying to stand between the wind and my camera. We'll see if it works. I hope it does. Okay. Thank you for the feedback. I will try to stay between me and the wind, or the wind and my microphone. I appreciate that. So the Rhodes's 1 Brigade is put into line there to discourage any ideas the 11th Corps might have about offensive action. 1 is held in reserve. He's going to launch an attack with the other 3. Unfortunately, like I said, Rhodes, normally a good commander, stumbles today. And he's also handicapped because 2 of those 3 brigades are commanded by, shall we say, less than competent men. Rhodes, what's supposed to be a smooth advance by 3 brigades in line, which might have actually done something at this point, becomes a disjointed mess and eventually outright slaughter. The first thing to go wrong is in front of me is a farm, pardon the concrete truck, there's nothing I can do about that, is a farm owned by a man named Moses McLean. I don't know if that's his original barn, but that is where his barn stood. That is the Moses McLean barn and house you're looking at right now. And across from the trees behind you, across the McLean fields, comes the Alabamians, commanded by a man named Colonel Edward O'Neill. Now, he was still a colonel because Lee didn't trust him. And in fact, after his performance today, O'Neill would be returned to division or brigade command, and someone else would be picked to lead this Alabama brigade. But O'Neill rushes forward because, again, Rhodes's orders are vague and unclear. So there's no coordination, and that's where this all goes wrong. And O'Neill doesn't do himself any favors by just rushing blindly ahead. In fact, he's told to try to maintain contact with the brigade that I mentioned was posted down there. He interprets that as just leaving 1 whole regiment behind. So under strength and all on his own, O'Neill rushes across the McLean farm towards the Union line, in line along the Mumsburg Road, right here. And he gets whipped in a 20 to 30 minute straight up firefight. The Yankees have the advantage of numbers, position, and they just straight up beat the Alabamians in a firefight and send them scurrying back across the McLean farm to the trees. Just as O'Neill was falling back, the Yankees see, and we'll switch positions here in a second, slanting across that way, a fresh Confederate line. So we're going to go see what they did about it in a moment. Now, this stone wall was there at the time of the battle. I'm not sure if it's the original stone wall or a rebuilt one. But what the Yankees do is change front from the Mumsburg Road to along this whole stone wall to intercept, and this is a better shot now, the Confederates coming. They're sort of slanting across the fields, if you can envision it. They're coming out of that tree line from Oak Hill and slanting across the fields this way. That is Rhodes' 2nd Brigade that was supposed to advance in conjunction with the 1st, but unfortunately, as I said, due to bad commanders and bad orders from Rhodes, did not. They have no idea O'Neill has been beaten and is falling back, and they're walking all alone into open fields. Their commander is Brigadier General Alfred Iverson. There have been attempts in recent years to try to redeem Iverson's reputation. I won't have it. My theory is that the war's been so written about, historians have nothing to do but pick out guys with disgraced reputations and try to be contrary about it. But Iverson's men come across these fields, come slanting across these fields, and I'm trying to hold it up over the growth, completely unaware. Iverson's men in the fields, the Yankees behind the stone wall, completely unaware that there is a whole line of Yankees behind said stone wall. Because Iverson, and you can't excuse this or try to explain this away, does not put out a line of brigade skirmishers. If you don't know, skirmishers are a thin line of men, usually several companies, that advance in advance of the main line, specifically to draw out enemy positions. It's a basic, fundamental military security tactic of the time, and Iverson does not do it. So as you can probably tell, Iverson's men coming across these fields are marching straight into an ambush. The Yankees are laying down behind the stone wall. Their colors are down. Iverson's men have no idea what's about to happen to them. So we're going to go out through a mown path some yards away where we will find out exactly what happened to them. So bear with me for 20 seconds while I walk. Okay, one of Iverson's brigade, the regimental historian of one of the men in Iverson's, or units in Iverson's brigade, later wrote, and I don't remember the exact quote, but it was, "Unwarned, unled, marched forth Iverson's devoted band to its doom." And doom is certainly what happened to them. They came out of the trees in front of you, came across the fields. As you can see, the Yankee line is marked by that monument. When they reach about this point, or a little farther, the Union soldiers rise up, completely, again, taking Iverson's men 120% by surprise, and open just the most devastating volley of the war. A survivor of Iverson's men, marching in the second rank, which is probably why he was a survivor, later said that when the Union soldiers opened fire, we in the second rank were sprayed by the brains of the first. Iverson's men, let me try and give you a view of it. If you're a soldier who managed to survive that fire, all you would have seen over there is a line of blue-coated Union soldiers pumping fire into your front and flank that you had no idea was there seconds before. Iverson's men go to ground in this low swale, this low ground in front of you, to try to return fire or just get some shelter and figure out what the hell just happened. If you watch me walk out to this marker earlier, someone really ought to power wash the bird crap off. But that path is the path that, when the Union men see the advantage they have over Iverson's men, the commanders shout, "Up men and over the wall, fixed bayonets." They charge across that path that we took earlier, along that general axis, down to this point, where Iverson's men, such that are still alive and unwounded, begin to surrender and hand over battle flags. Some of Iverson's men went to ground up that way and escaped the worst of the damage, managed to retreat more intact. The men here, the units on this flank, had no chance. The 23rd North Carolina, I believe only about 10% of its soldiers answered roll call the next day. After the battle, I don't remember if it was a Union chaplain, and you're going to have to forgive me if you're going to hear me have to turn away from the wind. Either a Union chaplain or a Union soldier said that he walked over this part of the field, counted 70-odd Confederates who appeared to have fallen by one fire, which they did. That would be the first Yankee ambush volley. 2 or 3 had fallen forward. The rest were in a straight line on their backs, their heels and feet on the same line, straight as a ruler. Iverson's men, like many of the Army of Northern Virginia, would be buried in mass graves, likely in this low ground where they fell. Legends would grow up. This farm was owned by a man named John Forney. Forney, allegedly, according to local legend, had trouble maintaining farmhands after the war because when they worked this part of the field, there would be strange mists and voices and apparitions. I don't believe in ghosts, but it's a good story. Some people claim Iverson's men are still there, but that's not true. When the Confederate dead were removed to Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond, Virginia in the 1870s, as far as anyone can tell, Iverson's men in those graves behind me where they fell were dug up and sent to Richmond as well. So that is the story of Rhodes's bungled attack and Iverson's destruction in the early afternoon of July 1st, 1863. I will throw in a bonus story now. In my first stream, I told you about the desperate, lonely, futile last stand of the 147th New York. Well, we are going to briefly look at another desperate, lonely last stand of a Union regiment that took place near here. Briefly fast forwarding, later in the day, after Lee arrives on the field, he did not want the fight, did not want this battle, but it was joined, so he orders a general attack, and after fearsome fighting, the Confederates begin to push the Union Army back through town, away from their positions, and back through town. Here on Oak Ridge is no different. Those fields are where the 11th Corps is fighting. As the 11th Corps unravels, they are flanked, they are outnumbered, and they are caught standing in open fields. So when the inevitable happens and they start to retreat through the town, that endangers, obviously, the flank of the Oak Ridge line. At the same time, the Union line where we were earlier has retreated to Seminary Ridge, which is sort of adjoins Oak Ridge. They are overwhelmed from their last line. That begins to crumble. And the soldiers on Oak Ridge here realize it's time to go. But they're being pressed hard everywhere by the renewed Confederate assault. So what to do? Well, the division commander of the men here, a man named John Robinson, decides that someone has to take one for the team and be the rear guard. So he picks the 16th Maine, which is in line down that way, and he tells them they get to be the rear guard. The colonel of the 16th Maine says, you might as well set a corporal's guard to stop the entire army. The 16th Maine is 200 odd men. What are we going to do? Robinson doesn't expect them to beat the rebels. However, he just expects them to buy time for everyone else to get away. So the 16th Maine comes out of line back where I showed you, and they move up to this apex, this V point, into line along the V, and begin firing, and in every direction. There's certainly enough rebels to fire at. They do their job. Colonel Tilden of the 16th Maine looks around, realizes the only men in blue he can see are his men with him. So they've done their job. Everyone's gone. So he tells his men to get out, and they join what's left of the 11th Corps, elements of the 1st Corps retreating down this way towards the town. Many of them end up on that railroad. That's the extension of where the railroad cut will spit you out is right here. And there's an unfortunate, remember how the 6th Wisconsin, if you watch my previous stream, and the 95th New York caught the rebels sort of like fish in a rain barrel along the railroad cut? It's not as bad here, but many Yankees funnel along the railroad. It's a natural thing to follow when you're panicked and in fear and going by instinct. And many Yankees are rounded up by rebels or shot, being funneled up the railroad into town. Well, that's my stream for now. I hope it was coherent and you learned something. Pardon the wings on my hair. Routine has kept me from getting a haircut. headed to the July 2nd battleground now. Maybe I'll do another one from there. I hope you enjoyed it.